How do we think about Tesla? Tech company, car company, what?
Hi, and thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I don't think that debates that we always had about Tesla, whether it's a tech company, whether it's a car company, or is it a weird amalgamation of tech and a car company, that has not been settled yet, really, right? Because on one hand, if you compare Tesla with Tesla has declined this year with the other technology mega caps. It's the worst performer on the NYSE Farm Plus index this year. It's worse. It's doing even worse than Meta Platforms, which is a Facebook owner, and about whose troubles we are all pretty familiar with. But I think it also comes back to this argument that what is common, however, especially in this big sell-off this year, is that for most of these companies, that aggressive growth outlook that was built into their valuation at the beginning of the year has started faltering, and that's exactly what we see.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because we know the underperformance versus some of the tech companies, even underperforming traditional car companies like Ford and GM. But there was that growth story that you mentioned here, and there's been so much chatter over the last few months about some of its production levels, particularly in China, some of the demand levels, the competition out there. Is this sort of that reckoning, the idea that for years Tesla was the only game in town, the only game in the world for the most part, if you wanted to buy an electric vehicle, and that's not necessarily the case here in 2022, and certainly not going to be the case over the next 2 to 5 years?
Right, and that's a great question. Reckoning is a word that I'm hearing a lot from my sources this year, both bulls and bears on Tesla, right? So it's definitely a reckoning for the bulls who kind of knew that Tesla is a stock that was priced for perfection, and the picture of perfection is definitely seeing some cracks, more than cracks, right? Especially the news that we had over the long weekend about the temporary halt in the Shanghai production plans, and that is kind of combining with another news that we had last week that Tesla was offering this actually pretty hefty and pretty rare discount on its cars in the U.S. so that consumers take delivery of Model 3s and Model Y cars before the year end. All of this taken together is really fueling concerns that demand is or may be faltering for EVs, which are actually more expensive than typical gas-driven cars.
Esha, I'm wondering about the Elon Musk factor here. I'm looking at a recent note from Dan Ives. He's got a $175 price target over the next 12 months on the company's stock. He is, of course, from Wedbush. He's bullish on it. He said, need a leader at this time for Tesla, not a Ted Stryker. At the same time that Tesla is cutting prices and inventory to build globally in the face of a likely global recession, Musk is viewed as, quote, asleep at the wheel from a leadership perspective for Tesla at a time that investors need a CEO to navigate this Category 5 storm. So what could Elon Musk do, according to analysts you've spoken to kind of fix this, at least, image that he is asleep at the wheel?
It's, again, great question. And what Tesla is really, as we said, what Tesla investors are really reckoning with right now is this kind of, this was always a double-edged sword, right? Elon Musk is a genius who can alone kind of justify the kind of valuations that Tesla had.
Yeah, but that genius narrative, a lot of holes got poked into that primarily, well, really even before Twitter, but once, of course, we saw how Twitter went down and the purchase of that and some of the emails, I think there was a little bit, of a reassessment, I guess, of what his contributions actually were to the success of some of these companies.
Definitely. I guess, the myth of genius actually did better when there wasn't so much transparency into how this genius works, right? But when that starts happening in full daylight, when he's running Twitter on Twitter, and kind of people are getting this idea of blow by blow of how he takes decisions, maybe some of that confidence in his ability to be able to take Tesla and drive Tesla through this impending recession that we are going to see possibly in 2023, that faith is now getting shaken quite a bit.